Hi everyone, it's Kitty Ratcliffe. Hope you can all see us and see the screen. It's nice to have you all join us today. We've got a really good group of folks that are going to share some information with you today. I just wanted to, first of all, thank you for everything that you're doing to continue to carry on through all the challenges that COVID-19 has been presenting to us since the middle of March. And so many of you have helped out with so many different projects and programs to try to sustain the industry. It's really been a wonderful team effort. Um, Things have changed a lot in the last few days. And while in St. Louis, we've experienced this in the past, um, in 2014 with Michael Brown, with the Stockley protests. This one is certainly different and magnified because it's national in scope and is having a big impact, negative impact right now on our region. Don't think it helps at all that to think that we're in the company of others or that it didn't start here, because in the end it's just all about its effect. I've really been hopeful that we were on a path to recovery, a slow path, but a path nonetheless. And that's really certainly been challenged in the last few days. I think our team's going to share with you some really good programs and ideas and insights for how we move forward. But I want you to know that we know that that's not today, right? That today is not the day for implementing new programs, but today is the day for getting ready to implement new programs for when this immediate crisis has passed and we can go back to dealing with just the crisis of the pandemic. Just one crisis at a time, please. So I think, what the team's going to share with you are some opportunities and some ideas on things that we want to make sure that we are ready when the time is right. I don't personally expect that time is going to be right this week or maybe next week. It might be a couple of weeks before we're ready to really reopen in a way to an external audience. But the path may be a little rocky. And as I said to our team yesterday, the road right now, the road ahead is filled with potholes. And that's how it seemed since March. And we've got a few more potholes that we're going to have to navigate. But as I said to them, if you just keep driving and you just keep working around those potholes, eventually the road gets smooth and we will be on a journey, and the journey will be to a better place than we are today. So again, I want to say thank you to everybody who has chipped in to help create protocol that sets standards for being able to open, who've continued to provide us with insights and ideas on things that have resulted in projects like Virtual St. Louis and STL Take It Home and others. And so it has been one big team effort, and it's just going to have to continue to be that way for a while. But that's not a bad thing. So I'm going to turn it over. I guess I'm going to turn it over directly to Patrick Higgins, unless Brian or Eric are going to introduce him. Okay, well, I get to introduce Patrick. We've had good fortune of striking up a relationship with Connect in the last year. Both Eric and Brian worked with Patrick Higgins to come up with a program that initially was designed to create some site visit experiences, some fam trip type experiences here in St. Louis over the next year. The first of those happened in February. We had a second one planned for April and then others later in the year. The first one was a great success. The others are not going to materialize the way that we had originally planned. But these three folks have been working together to try to make sure that we can continue to showcase the St. Louis product that we have to meeting and event organizers who can bring business to us in the future. So Patrick's here. He's going to share with us some of the research that they've been doing, and he and Brian and Eric will talk to you about our plans for the future. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. We've got a good group of folks on on the call today that represent all facets of our hospitality industry, not just hotel partners, not just restaurants, not just attractions, not just transportation companies, all of those and many, many more businesses that are a part of our visitor industry. So we've got a good audience here for you today. Thanks for joining us. I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Kitty. And thank you everybody for being here today, and to Brian, Eric, and Barry for the team, and the team for taking up this opportunity. We really at Connect, we really value our partnership with St. Louis. And when we originally started having some early conversations with the team in terms of how we were going to work together this year on some special projects and objectives, the amount of, and we work with destinations from all over the country and about 27 different international destinations. And from an engagement standpoint, and from a willingness to listen, and the team at Explore St. Louis, they really are, and I'm not just saying this because they're on the call, but I'm a former DMO person, and it took about 4 months for us to really formalize this agreement, because they kept everything we came to them with, they said, yes, that's good, but it's not really looking out for this partner or this member category. And so the end result that we executed the first project with in February, I feel like it really did benefit the entire community in the long run, and hopefully the short term. And then COVID-19 hit about 3 months. The timing was awful, and of course in a situation like this, the timing is never going to be good. But we had just finalized the project. We had just put together a great highlight video that we'll send to you later that really encapsulated the entire program, and had some great feedback from planners that had never been to St. Louis before, and they were able to share what they thought before and after. And I think the day after I sent it over to the team, the finished product to the team, that was when it was that Wednesday night where that NBA game where everything came to a screeching halt, and then it fell in short order after that. So what I'm going to share with everybody today is a combination of a few different things. It is the survey results that many of you took, that the Explore St. Louis team sent out last week, and so we've tabulated those responses. But then we also, back in April, and it spilled into early May, we sent out what we called as Connect. We called it the Not Back But Forward Planner Survey, and it went out to our entire database of planners. And it really, what we wanted to do was to get a good idea of what they were experiencing. We didn't want to be anecdotal in our approach. For those of you that aren't familiar with Connect, we own and operate about 48 hosted buyer events annually. And each one of those events, regardless of the specific vertical purpose, it exists to create business development opportunities between convention and visitors bureaus, hotels, service providers, and planners. And we realized quickly that if we aren't able to bring planners to our shows and to our events, there was no reason and no way that we could expect a convention and visitors bureau or a hotel to pay a registration fee and travel to come to the events. So the planner attention and understanding planners' behavior and what their new behavior may look like became of critical importance to us. And we've invested a lot of time and resources, about 4 times what we traditionally do on an annual basis, to really understand what planners are feeling and what they're experiencing. And that continues to go forward. We send out smaller, quicker versions of this survey every 10 days to planners, so that we can start putting our finger on the pulse of, are things improving? Do we need to adjust, and what that may look like? And we love to share that information with folks like Eric and Brian and Kitty and the team, because it's important to know what the next chapter in this whole thing looks like and how we can prepare for that. So the survey responses, we also sent a survey out earlier this year to vice presidents of sales and marketing and directors of sales and marketing from hotels and CVBs, to get an idea of what they're going through and what they're experiencing. And then a few other surveys that we've conducted. So we've tabulated everything together. And what I'd like to do is for these next couple slides is to share when we sent out when I sent the survey out late last week, to share what you're seeing and what you're thinking, or what you think about St. Louis and the approach to St. Louis. but then also what the planners are saying, so we can actually show that where things are in common and where things may not be as much. So we can go to the next slide, please. All right, so these demographics, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. And for any of you that want a full version of this survey, let me know, and I'm happy to email it to you. My email address is at the end of this presentation. But this gives you an idea of, from a planner perspective, what the respondents look like. I can say that when we sent a planner survey out about 13 months ago, prior to this survey, the average age in years was right around 36 years old. So those, we can theorize why that is. I don't know if it's a combination of different factors, but it's the average age of the planners that took this survey did go up, as did the average time in their current positions. So it's, I did think that was interesting, and we're open to dive a little deeper into that data. But the pie chart here, you'll see that these are different vertical market segments. So the three largest market segments that did respond were association planners, corporate planners, followed by third-party planners or intermediaries. All right, next slide, please. And this is just a breakdown of the survey responses that they came back from the hospitality community there in St. Louis. So multiple categories represented, the largest of which is a single hotel. All right, next slide, please. All right, so when we asked, what do you think is the most important thing for Explore St. Louis to provide to meeting planners as we move into the new normal? And when we asked this question of planners, and this question was designed based off several conversations that I had, and we're saying, look, we want to know what the indicator is. What is the indicator that planners are looking for to let them know it's time to start moving again? As you can see here, the most common response from you as a hospitality community was to meaningfully demonstrate that St. Louis is safe and that it's clean. And yes, while that is incredibly important, you can see here the planner responses, the most common of which was it's continued to provide destination expertise, which was primarily what meeting planners relied on CVBs to do this time last year. They're unfamiliar with St. Louis, or they haven't been there in several years, and they want to rely on Explore St. Louis and the team to really help them understand what those hosting capabilities are and what those options are. So it's, and you can see here the various different responses that tied in with that too. But yes, meaningfully demonstrate St. Louis is safe and clean was number 2, but number 1 is going to be continuing to be what Explore St. Louis is known for and what they're so good at, which is taking the St. Louis story to the industry and make sure that meeting planners know about its capabilities. All right, next slide, please. Yeah, I've done several of these webinars for different communities around the country. Nobody has come as close to what the exact number is as you guys did. So you're either really smart or you're really well trained by your by the Explore St. Louis folks. But about 80% of meeting planners have canceled events this year, at least one event. 85% have postponed events. So as you can see here, your responses came in at 78% in terms of just how many planners, what percentage of planners you thought canceled events. And it's interesting, that number, what we saw when this whole thing started entering the scene in mid-March, is what we saw was planners were more postponing events rather than canceling them. But as the severity of the situation increased, it happened very quickly. Within about a week's time, it went from about 35% cancellations up to high 70s. And the last time since about the last 3 weeks, it's been hovering right around 80% have been canceling. All right, next slide, please. And which month do you think the majority of meeting planners will begin holding meetings again? You see the most common response, 56% of you had indicated that November would be when meetings will be start happening again. It's a little bit earlier that it's going to be in October from what we've been told. In fact, for several of our own events, October did seem to be the most common. Not just when the hotels seem to feel like they would be opening up and they'd be able to have their staff up and running and those safety protocols in place, but it also seemed to be the month where folks were most comfortable getting on a plane and flying as well. So it's a good indication. The 2021 was also when people were starting to look into, but as far as 2020 goes, for me and for our team, we find great comfort that the majority of our events that we were considering, are we going to have to cancel these in 2020? We're going to have plenty of time in the fall where we can actually go ahead and move forward and place events at hotels that are comfortable, that they're going to be open and ready to go. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. When we asked, when do planners start, when do you anticipate traveling again? And this was an important question to us because we've heard the term traveler confidence. And for so many of the planners that we've spoken with, they're going to start some smaller regional travel. What we wanted to really know with this question when we sent it to them was, when will you be comfortable going through the airport, getting on a plane and flying somewhere? And as you can see here, April and May, it was pretty bleak. It was about 4%. June and July, it starts to ramp up to about 23%. And then August and September, it really starts to take off from there. So it's a good indication for us. If planners are looking at this number, then I think it's safe to assume that they're going to be their attendees will probably fall in line and feel the same way. It was also encouraging that number went up 11% then when we sent this survey out in March. So planners are I think the further we get into this, the more that comfort level rises and people are more comfortable traveling and flying on planes.
And the airlines have been posting much better results on a lot of advanced bookings. I've been reading through different syndicated research sources. So they're starting to see the recovery now.
Yeah, in fact, that's a good point. In fact, the TSA checkpoint numbers, the TSA tabulates, and I can include the link for every day TSA sends out a link to show how many passengers pass through TSA checkpoints domestically, and they compare that with how many traveled last year. Last year, this time of year, we were anywhere between 2.5 to 3 million passengers cleared checkpoints each day. We had the highest number of passengers to pass through TSA checkpoint last weekend than we had since all of this happened, which is encouraging. We still have a long way to go, but it is that pendulum starting to swing in the right direction.
And I would just like to say thank you to Kitty Radcliffe for contributing to that increase last weekend.
I was one of them. I flew for the first time to go visit my mom for Memorial Day for the first time in 2 months. It's quite an experience. I took my Enterprise rent-a-car when I landed. So I'm contributing to our homegrown company.
Not to get off topic, Kitty, but just was it a different experience? Do you feel comfortable while you were doing it?
It was a different experience. I did not feel comfortable. So, and that's unfortunate, but I flew Southwest, which I love. I love Southwest, but I didn't love them on the flight because they didn't have any rows roped off. The boarding process was very well done. They kept people separated. Going through the TSA checkpoints in both airports was good. I flew to Dallas and back. So the process of going through the airports and the onboarding was fine, but I really didn't understand. Both planes were maybe a third full, and I really didn't understand why they didn't rope off some of the rows to create some distance.
See, and I haven't traveled since all this happened. I didn't realize. I thought that they were doing that. I didn't realize that they were.
No, it was sit wherever you want to sit. So I had somebody right in front of me, right behind me, and across the aisle from me on both flights. So
oh, wow.
that was a little unsettling. Yeah, they have to figure out how to do that better.
I did have a conversation with the American Association of Airport Executives last week, and was asking them some questions just in regards to travel. And they had mentioned that one of the things that they're trying to sort out is to understand, trying to go the way where if the airport does everything that it can do to make sure that passengers clear health and wellness checkpoints, that they do everything they can to maintain a social distancing standard throughout the airport. If they do all of that, but when those passengers do board their respective planes with their respective airlines, and they're not doing the same thing, then it's all for naught. And they're really trying to figure out a way where they can create some sort of uniformity where everybody's working together with the same standards and guidelines for travel.
Yeah, I think they need to do that. And both flights were different in terms of their food service also. On the one flight, they announced that they weren't going to do food service because of I mean beverages, carts, and, snacks. They weren't going to do it because of social distancing. Even though I had somebody right in front of me, somebody right behind me, and somebody across the aisle. That didn't make any sense to me at all. And then on the return flight, same airline, they announced that due to social distancing, they were going to be distributing only cans of water with straws and snack packages, which they did. But so I didn't understand the difference. So
same airline, same distance travel. That's interesting.
I think your point about consistency is a key one here, because this was same airline, different practices.
Oh, there's and I think that's the stories like that and experiences like that. We know everybody talks. Like, I'm eager to talk to anybody that's done anything for the first time since all this happened, so that I can learn from their experiences. I presume everybody else is the same way. So I think the more conversations we have, the more common travel becomes. Hopefully that leads to more people feeling comfortable, and that planner confidence or travel confidence builds up faster.
Yeah, agree.
I think across the board, moving on to this next slide, I think across the board, everyone I talk to, lead volume is down. Leads just, it is. So that's just the current state of things. When we did ask planners when they're going to be sending RFPs, about 34% of them have said that they're going to start right now. Now, I don't want that number to mislead anybody. That number is also meetings that have been postponed or being rescheduled within destinations. So that doesn't mean they're necessarily being distributed the way that they normally would as widely, but they are in active process of trying to rebook a meeting or book a meeting. June, we anticipate it's gonna be a little bit slower, and then again, it starts ramping up by September. But it's the one statistic that I'm trying to keep in mind as we process these numbers is, do planners really feel like September is the right month where they're going to start sourcing meetings, or is September just the month that is 5 months away, where they feel like things might have improved enough by then where they're going to be comfortable doing that? We don't know. Time will tell, but that does consistently seem to be the most popular month remaining in 2020, where leads will be sent out. When we did ask about signing contracts, again, right now it's if we round up, it's 21%, but a lot of those are meetings that are being rebooked. So that's just something to keep in mind too. But it's for us, our largest conference of the year is going to be later this year. We're really trying to understand planner sourcing behavior and how it's changed. So if any of you do have any questions about what we're seeing, or you'd like to get updates from us in terms of these numbers, just let me know, and I'm happy to provide that. This is an interesting statistic. So I'm working with I think about 22 different cities on conversations about what things will look like when they open. What are the hotels going to do? They're trying to cross red tape to try and figure out how they open up single hotels, now convention centers opening up, and we're having this ongoing dialogue. And then I get an email from Brian and Eric one day that says, here's what our guidelines are. And I thought, well, you have guidelines that are printed and bound, and the other cities I'm working with are still trying to figure out how to make this work, and St. Louis as a whole seems to be much further ahead, and I'm sure they're not the only one in the country that has guidelines ready to go, but they're the first ones that I personally have seen that I was looking through that actually provided guidance, and it was clear and it was easy to understand, and that's what planners are looking for. When we ask the question, do planners feel like it's the responsibility of a CVB like for St. Louis to provide them with health and wellness guidelines for the entire destination? You indicated 90% of you say yes. 69% of meeting planners said yes as well. There was a very vocal, surprisingly so, a very vocal 10% that said no. They want to be in charge of curating their own information. They want to take that information and they want to somehow try and maybe negotiate it or do something with it, where they want to be the ones that are in the driver's seat for collecting their own information.
We all know some planners like that, I'm sure.
which is interesting. I did not see that passionate of a response coming our way to this question, but it was pretty eye-opening, and I think it's a good indication into at least how some planners are processing this entire situation that we're all in right now. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. What is the top indicator when you think planners are looking for to demonstrate it's time to start traveling? Your response, most common response, number one, was that other meetings and events have successfully executed healthy programs, which I personally would have leaned in that direction. Meeting planners said that their number one response was they just want statistics that show them that it's safe to go again. They don't necessarily need to have somebody go first and then see how it worked out. They just need favorable statistics that they can use to build that comfort level. Which as we process that internally, I can see why that response was the most common, but it's also a response that leads to quicker meetings and events actualizing. They don't have to wait for something to happen. They feel comfortable when the numbers start leaning in their favor.
Well, Patrick, it's interesting you say that, because we had a call with a customer about reschedule or about the meeting going on, and that concern is coming from their attendees, which they're passing through to us. And what they did measure, they said, okay, how many cases and of course how many deaths occurred. However, they don't take in consideration the testing data, how many people have been tested to get to the cases, to get to the deaths, which is one variable that certain states have tested their entire population, certain other states have not. So the percentages vary based on the testing capability of the destination. So it's interesting. I can see where it's coming from. It's attendee driven, not always planner driven. So they have another aspect of their decision making that drives what questions come to us.
I can completely see that. I think, and it is interesting too in terms of just statistics. These statistics are all over the board, right? Everyone's curating information. They're trying to see what hospitalizations look like in new cases. I think from my personal experience, having led our site selection team for about 6 years, it is amazing to me to see just how inconsistent statistics and even hosting capabilities are across the board. I was on the phone with somebody in California who they had to go through and clear their entire slate of business for the next 90 days because that was the directive that they were given. You don't know if you can host these meetings in July. You don't know if you can host them in August. Either reschedule it or cancel it, but that's just, planners they're looking for places that they know are open for business right now. And if their first choice or second choice or the choice that they're most comfortable with doesn't exist, they need to know what options are available because they need a place that they can open up registration for. Next slide, please. Thank you. How do you feel about virtual meetings? I know for me personally, in the industry that we're all in, I hate them. I hate them. I hope that they're a necessary evil for right now, but I genuinely miss seeing my friends. I miss seeing my colleagues. I miss that buzz that comes from being in a registration area, trying new rest. There's so many reasons I don't like virtual meetings. But when we did ask the survey of meeting planners, you can see here, 78% said they're okay with them, but only for right now. Only 4% of planners said that they love virtual meetings, and everyone else says that they're not using them at all. They don't plan on using them, which is I think that this probably falls more in line with how I personally feel about this, where it's a necessary evil, but I'm really eager to take Zoom and just delete it off my computer and never have to use it again.
Slide.
All right. This is a good segue into what I want to talk about next. And we had asked what percentage of meeting planners do you think have replaced the traditional meeting, at least one traditional meeting, with a virtual meeting? You had said 62%. Meeting planners had said 90%, at least 90%, which I personally, as I was talking with our team, I want to take it upon us as a personal mission to work with everybody we can. When we send this survey out again in 30 days, let's see if we could somehow get that number to go down every time that we talk to people, because again, they are important for now, but we've seen everything. I took a tour of a virtual exhibit hall floor last week, and I got off the call and I had to go for a walk because I was just shocked at what I was seeing, where it's, you put on VR goggles and you're navigating an exhibit hall floor, and it's just, I just don't get it. To me, that's information I can find on a website. It is not a replacement for seeing, touching, feeling, and talking to people face to face. So, but it is something that it's here to stay, at least for 2020. And that's where it's like, as I mentioned, it's a good segue for what we're going to talk about next and how we're going to pivot from what we did in February with the St. Louis hospitality community and what we're moving into. So next slide, please. Thank you. So as many of you are familiar, we had a very successful initial program. It was one of 4 that we were going to execute this year in St. Louis, a Connect with St. Louis that was in February. We brought in 12 meeting planners. They represent collectively about 155,000 room nights, the potential for that, to St. Louis. Many of them had never been there before. St. Louis shined. They got a chance to see so much of St. Louis and get a feel for the culture and the people and the restaurants and the convention center and the rest of the hotels and everything that they would need to successfully execute a program. But then again, in March, that came to a screeching halt. We were supposed to execute number 2 in April, and number 3 was supposed to be, gosh, was it supposed to be this week?
Right about now.
Next week? Yeah. And we had some great planner interest. We had planners that couldn't fly to St. Louis for the first one that said, please keep us in mind for the second one. Or please get those, the first 2 dates don't work, please keep us in mind for the third one. So there was strong planner interest in what we were doing. But what we've been working with Brian and Eric on is, we're at Connect, we took a look at this and thought we're going to continue to hold our in-person meetings. They may not be in the numbers that we thought they would be this year, but it's also going to be critically important that we have a solution that brings planners and CVBs and hotels and community members together virtually, whether they may not have a budget to travel, they may not be comfortable getting on an airplane and flying somewhere. Whatever the case may be, it was important for us to invest in some sort of a resource that could bring people together in this pause while we can't travel in the numbers that we were used to. So what we've come up with is we've worked with our UK office and the development team over there, and we've come up with what we don't know exactly what we're going to call this yet. For now, I'm just calling it the Connect with St. Louis Virtual Edition. But it's a one-of-a-kind virtual platform that was built for us. It's strictly web-based. It's no downloads or anything like that. It can be accessed on a computer, on a mobile device, iPad, Android, whatever the case may be. It's accessible on all those platforms. All you need is internet access. And it will be completely white labeled for the Connect with St. Louis program. And what it will allow us to do is, can you go next slide, please? Thank you. It can live stream people coming live from different locations within St. Louis, or almost like a newscast. They can be broadcast live from different places throughout St. Louis, showcasing some of the great facilities and venues and hotels in St. Louis. It could come from a kitchen at a catering facility or a convention center or a restaurant. The capability is endless. We can also upload videos that have been previously created just for this purpose, can be created and housed in this platform, and that people can have access to leading up to the program itself. But it's a complete, all of the functionality exists to be able to share video within the platform itself. And within that platform, one of the most beneficial takeaway from our event in February with Explore St. Louis was when we got the planners together on a Saturday morning. We sat in a U-shaped configuration, and we had a very candid dialogue, and we were just talking about, okay, you haven't been to St. Louis before. You've been here for 2.5 days now. What do you think? What were the takeaways? What surprised you? What do you think, based on your experience, where can they get better? It was a very candid conversation. We got a lot of good takeaways out of it. Many people were taking notes, and planners were thanking us and St. Louis for bringing them together to find out what they wanted and what they thought. It wasn't the traditional approach is to bring planners together just to tell them about what you have. they did that on the front end through experiences, but through this process, they actually had an opportunity to share what they thought and what they would do and what they would like to see. And that was a great takeaway. So through this platform, we can still bring planners together to talk about St. Louis. We can segment them and break them up into smaller virtual meeting rooms, and we can facilitate those conversations. There's a lot of functionality with how we want to stand this up, but it's all been customized to be able to give planners experience and give them a taste of what St. Louis has to offer. Next slide, please. And the best part of this is that on the tail end of this, or throughout this program, what we could actually do is we could take the meeting planners that have been pre-qualified by us as good candidates for St. Louis. They check all the boxes, they source the Midwest, they have the right meeting space, they're whatever the case may be. We've been given some pretty strict criteria from Eric and Brian in terms of what a good planner looks like for St. Louis and what they want us to try and go out and find. We can schedule one-on-one appointments through this platform to be able to allow some face-to-face dialogue between the community and the members of the Explore St. Louis team and the meeting planners. Now we're taking all of this information. We've been developing this for about 2 months now. It is not, we're going through our third test right now. We can't guarantee when this is going to be officially ready to go and launch, but it is, we've talked to Brian and Eric about this. They're in the loop on this, and we're continuing to test and just fine tune this and tweak this so we get the best possible experience. But it is something that we are looking to utilize and be able to bring to the Explore St. Louis team to be able to replace those valuable programs we weren't able to execute because of the coronavirus, to be able to actually give planners a chance to interact face-to-face with the Explore St. Louis team, to be able to start laying the foundation for future meetings and events being held in St. Louis. So that's
Katie reflected earlier, the time is not right, notwithstanding the fact that the platform isn't quite ready. It wouldn't be appropriate for us to be out gathering these groups virtually yet. But we're laying the groundwork. One of the first actions that we're going to take is reaching out to the many partners that had opted in to the Connect with St. Louis platform at the commencement. So you're going to be hearing from us in the not too distant future. And then we'll have communications to all of our partners in reference to how you can be a part of this platform and showcase your organization and have an opportunity to interface with some of these customers. So be on the lookout. In the meantime, we're also going to be creating some video content that will be hung on this platform that'll help tell the story in a narrative fashion in reference to the St. Louis Convention package, AC Next Gen, what makes our community unique and special. And we're going to hear from a variety of voices. We're going to stitch that together as educational content as well as inspiration. And that'll be the first requirement of a meeting professional, that they actually view the video and then take a survey to help us understand more about them and their needs and their opinions in reference to St. Louis. So thank you, Patrick, for that. That was terrific, and we very much appreciate the partnership. Mark, we're going to pivot over to Eric Janicki for a quick sales update, but I want to address a couple of comments and questions first. Kitty, our good friend Kathy Reeves says thank you for using Enterprise.
I always use Enterprise, Kathy.
And Southwest said that they love you, and they'll try to do better next time. No, I'm just kidding. That's not for real. Dia Hoover said that she noticed that the slide wasn't in full projection mode. Patrick, note to you, I know you're a Mac devotee, but apparently Keynote and GoToMeeting do not quite work. So when you saw a blank screen at the beginning, it is because GoToMeeting doesn't accept Keynote in a projector mode. So that's why we had to go through in a slightly different fashion. So Mark, we're going to go to go to slide number 21. For 21, there you go, for Eric, and I'll toss it over to Eric.
All right, there we go. Hey, thank you, Brian. And Patrick, thank you, and appreciate the partnership that we forged together, and I'm looking for great success. You know, it's interesting. This past weekend, I got a couple emails from hotel partners that saw an article in the paper about Kojak canceling, and they said, how come we weren't made aware of this? And were you aware of this prior? And I just wanted to share quickly that when groups come to us, and there are many groups that are discussing right now with us what their options are, because they're concerned about the relevancy of their programming and whether their attendees will come. We're not going to share each conversation with the partners until it becomes more definitive. The press, whoever went to the press, launch it quickly. They post it on their website quickly. We cannot cancel in our system until we get written confirmation from the organization that they're canceling. An email doesn't work. It has to be written. So there's more to come. We're having conversations. We're still waiting for the written cancellation confirmation for Kojak. But that's why there was a little delay, and I apologize if it ruffled some feathers, but that's why the delays are there. We were on top of the account. Stephanie Monroe has a very close relationship, and we have a strategy going forward. To that end, with Kojak or any other group, I would ask you, and Barry's going to post my email address, if you have any questions on any account related to Explore St. Louis, please email me and we'll update you on all the information we have. We just can't go out there and communicate all the time, every conversation we have, but we do have updated information, and we're more than welcome to share it with you. So to that end, more to come. I would like to know with Kojak, to the individual hotels in the blocks, if you can share with me what your positioning is as to their announcement of cancellation. So I would welcome those comments back. So if you could do that, I appreciate it. So a little leading into some comments I got out of Patrick's presentation. One of them that sparked I love watching the stock market. I dabble. I wish I had the money Brian Hall had so I could do more, but I do like dabbling. But if everybody looks at the market has been accelerating positively over the last 2.5 weeks. And that's because the market is forward thinking. And I think as a salesperson and a sales organization, we have to be the same way. We can't look at what is happening today in the marketplace or what is happening tomorrow. We have to look what's happening 2 weeks from now, a month from now, 2 months from now, as to what strategies we're going to put in place. And the partnership that we're forging with Patrick and Connect is one of those tactics. Is Brian's expertise in marketing, his staff really lends a lot of credence to what we put out there, and I appreciate his team. I tease him a lot, but I really, he's been great to work with to get this done. But what we're going to put forward to the community is something that no other destination is doing, but it's also to engage as many customers as we can in the platform they're most comfortable at this time, which is virtual. You're not going to find customers having the comfort to get on a plane to do a site inspection. You may find some, but not many. So how do we increase our RFPs and also increase our awareness with the customer to feel comfortable booking our destination? So that leads me into, Brian and I had a call with Cvent to get a little update. We have these, I guess quarterly, Brian? We have quarterly?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, and they gave us year-over-year data. It really didn't break down to when COVID started, but there were a couple of telling things that came out of it. And one of them really goes to what Patrick mentioned. Customers are starting to lean more on CVCs to be their conduit to their meeting planning. Part of it is because they've reduced staff, and also the availability of hotels are sort of in flux right now. So they're leaning on CVBs to provide information on protocols, but also information on all the destinations. So we've got to have extremely good communication, seamless communication between the partners and the CVC staff. And I really urge you to lock into our players, which is Stephanie Monroe, Dana Dom, David Raymond, and Miranda Barisco. So those are our players that are active, and I urge you to plug into them. Also, you saw a little of the size of the group, because if you look at the average room night per RFP, they've gone up year over year, which is, if you asked me in a survey, I wouldn't have said that because I thought we're doing more self-contained, but it goes to what's coming through our system. And Brian reached out this week to many of the partners saying, what does this look like from your hotel side? So these are takeaways what comes in our system. But here's one of the things that we did take away from the call, and I urge all of you. We don't have the staffs to do the work we did 3 months ago, but if you haven't gone into your Cvent system to update your status, update your collateral, update any news that pertaining, whether you're open, what services you have, what videos you have, I urge you to go into Cvent and do that right now, this week, because customers are starting to go back in the system to look. And if you're not up to date, they're gonna go somewhere else. Brian, you have?
Yeah, we're updating our page later this week or by the end of this week to include and feature the protocols that we have together created. And we'll have a brief narrative in reference to the reopening timing of St. Louis, beginning with the 18th of May, and then for venues at 25% capacity on the 8th of June. We'll feature a narrative in reference and link to the protocols. For all intents and purposes, it would be language that you could use for the hotels that are part of this call on your site as well, to underscore not only the protocols that you are embracing, but I think what makes us unique, back to Patrick's point a few minutes ago, is the fact that we've done this for the entire travel and tourism community. We've covered off transportation, we've covered off the airport, we've covered off taxi cabs and Uber and Lyft, all the way through attractions and venues in the community and restaurants, and retailers. I think that would be very reassuring content for you to have on your sites. Sorry, Eric.
Oh, no. And I will just leave you, because we have other things to cover, is that I urge you, Barry's posted my email address. Any account questions, please send them directly. Either I'll answer them or I'll have one of our salespeople answer the questions. But we're here to help you, and we look for you to help us. So this is a partnership, as you know, Barry will tell you, you are the partner. So it is a partnership, and when we move forward with Connect and get these scheduled, it's going to be multifaceted. It's not just going to be hotels, it's venue, attractions, restaurants. We're going to be the people that reach out to our customers and give them the information they need to make good decisions in coming to our destination. So I want to thank you again, Patrick and Brian. Thanks for your time. Kitty, and always, I'm a Southwest guy too. So, thank you for your great support to the team, Kitty.
Before we move on from this slide, I would just like to note that you will see some very steep reductions in the month of May, or the months of April and May, that were, I'm sure, down appreciably compared to the year prior. But if you look at January, February, and March, and then we nosedived in April and May, that just gives you an indication as to how things really came to a screeching halt during that time period. And obviously the mass cancellations ensued. We're going to be looking at this trending. I'm going to share it with the hotel community routinely. We'd very much like to hear from you and see what kind of volume you're experiencing at each one of your properties. Somebody had just asked a question about slides that they came in a little bit late, they weren't able to see. Barry is going to be sharing a complete recap of everything that we have discussed during this call, including a video that we're not playing for you at this point, that summarizes the first Connect with St. Louis experience that Patrick alluded to, that took place in February. So Marcus, if you go to the next slide, I want to share with you, I'm going to do a very brief update this afternoon in reference to some work that we have in progress. But before I get into it, just a quick snapshot in reference to some recent research that we've gathered. And this was completed at the end of May. And oh my, how things have changed since the end of May. So take it with a grain of salt, because it doesn't take into consideration the unrest that we're presently experiencing. But encouragingly, before this unrest, according to destination analysts, 6 in 10 Americans are eager to travel. I've been calling it an antidote to cabin fever. People need to get out. They need to re-engage with others. And I think that many people in our community are ready to do that. Skift indicates to us that 40% of Americans say that their first trip is going to be by car within 100 miles. So this is consistent with a lot of the conversations that we've been having with many of you, and certainly many other sources of data as well. So our campaign, when it's the right time to begin it, is going to begin very proximate to St. Louis and then start expanding its way out as time goes on. Look at this percentage. 26% are indicating that they're going to go over 100 miles, but they're going to stay in the US and they're going to stick to their cars. Only 16% indicate that they're going to get on a plane, and very few indicate that they're going to leave the United States, but we don't care about them because they're not coming to St. Louis, unfortunately. Next, the percent of conference and convention travelers. Marcus, not yet. The percent of conference and convention travelers saying that they're going to avoid those events is at a 9-week low. It's still high at 67.5%, but it's trending down. So we're going to watch that. The willingness to actually attend an event is an important precursor, obviously, to a meeting planner actually pulling the trigger and holding their meeting. And then lastly, 3/4 of Americans who plan to travel this year are going to research what the destination is doing to ensure their safety. So our protocols come into play, I think, very well, and it really does support the campaign that I kind of previewed for you last week, and I'm going to give you a quick update on it now. Now you can go to the next slide. The campaign is called Re-Explore St. Louis, and it's going to be a digital marketing platform. We don't know the timing of it exactly, and I will communicate with all of you, and we will collaborate in that communication to determine when the right timing is for this. But we had a chance. This is the old hurry up and wait. We scrambled to put together a photo shoot so that we could capture a diverse group of talent enjoying experiences throughout our community with their face coverings on, because that is the protocol. That is the new normal here in St. Louis. These have not been color corrected, but this will give you a glimpse into a series of digital display banners that encourage people to reconnect at the Arch, reimagine at the aquarium, have a great experience over at Creve Coeur Lake, and re-explore St. Louis responsibly. So that's how the banners are sort of materializing. And again, these haven't been color corrected either, but give you a glimpse. I love the shot with those kids having an encounter with a bear, a brown bear at the St. Louis Zoo. We got a great family beneath the arch. We have another family over at the Lohmeyer Sculpture Park. So collaborate with us. We would love to get your photography of our new normal. Now, this is not going to be forever. We're not going to be wearing face coverings for hopefully too long. But for right now, we think it's really important as we message together that we model the type of behavior, responsible behavior that we want people to embrace when they travel to St. Louis. So we've got a nice plan that's all outlined and it's ready to go. I guess the good news is we've done the heavy lifting to get the campaign together. Now we just need to determine when the right time is to pull the trigger. So Mark, go to the next slide, which is all the content that's going to support the campaign. So we've been busy, and Mark, I'm going to have you go ahead and go straight to the Passport to St. Louis online, and let's do a quick demonstration. Everyone on the call right now, you can get to Passport to St. Louis right off the homepage of our website, exploreStLouis.com, and check this out. I want you to look at this site because I want you to give us recommendations as to additional content that we can curate and post, content from you, content from others. But right now, what we've done is we've created a highly searchable and easy to use and easy to navigate site module here so that you can get the latest and greatest on a wide variety of experiences that you will be able to re-explore in St. Louis. We've got the attractions that are selected right now, but if you go, Mark, if you go into that search box and let's look at hotels. Let's have a look at all the hotels and the special offers. You don't need to type it in. You just need to pull it down. And you get all the hotels in the community. If you scroll down, you can see that you have given us some great content, wonderful offers, great packages. The attractions, we have a preview of all the attractions that are going to be opening up in the not too distant future, beginning with the St. Louis Aquarium on the 8th. We have the zoo opening up on the 13th. We have Missouri Botanical Garden slated to open, the Science Center slated to open. We're writing a narrative so that this is the one-stop shop for where you go for all of the information on how to re-explore St. Louis during this time period. So have a look at it, give us some feedback, let us know what we might be missing, and we would be happy to make sure that that content is reflected. Back to the slides, please, Mark. The last thing that I wanted to share with you is I think many of you know, that we teamed up a number of years ago. In fact, it was post-Ferguson. It was Kitty's recommendation at the time that we needed to improve the image of St. Louis nationally. And we've been working with a company, a PR firm out of New York called DCI. And over the past several weeks, and certainly before the crisis, we've had a tremendous amount of success with them. What's interesting right now is that writers who remain working with the trade press as far as meeting and convention periodicals, in addition to the consumer titles, they're looking for content. And we've been there for them, feeding them some great stories. And I just wanted to give you a quick preview. We just appeared in Reader's Digest. I love this headline. I've seen 100 plus of these virtual tours, and these are my 11 favorites. And who's at the top of the list? St. Louis. Look at the babies that were born at the St. Louis Zoo that were featured in USA Today. The drive-in over at Powerplex just made national news in Forbes, and Dan Buck is very pleased with that, and he should be, because that's fantastic exposure for that complex. If you go to the next slide, there are more, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. So I just want to let you know that there's some good things that are happening out there that are helping to build our reputation. And then kind of reflecting on what we were talking about earlier with respect to Patrick and Eric and this virtual connect opportunity. So we know now's not the right time to engage in conversation with meeting professionals about the future in the midst of the crisis that we're experiencing. But it will be soon. And the fact is, many of them are working out of their homes. Many of them have downtime. Many of them are looking for things that they can do to occupy themselves before they get crazy again. What a perfect opportunity for us to invite them to connect to St. Louis and to set the table for the future. So at the right time, we look forward to doing just that, because I think we can have the same success with meeting professionals and planting those seeds that we can grow during this time period, so that we can realize the harvest in the future. The last thing before I wrap up that I would like to let everyone know, Katie, I'm just going to mention the conversation with Otis this morning. Otis Williams at the SLDC is setting aside a modest amount of money that is going to run through the Downtown St. Louis, Downtown STL Foundation to support any businesses that are in need of funding support for the purpose of boarding up or meeting their insurance deductibles for damage that they may have experienced, or if their doors are open and they're okay, but they would simply like to be selected to prepare and deliver food to first responders, the National Urban League, and Better Family Life. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you and put you in touch with them. They've got some funds that they can free up for your business. It is recommended, I hate to say this, it's hard, but it is recommended right now that if you're a storefront in downtown St. Louis, you should board up. And so if you need help doing that, there are resources that you can turn to. And so in any event, it's for St. Louis City only, not only downtown, but the entire St. Louis City region. And you can just reach out to me, bhall@exploreStLouis.com, and I can put you in touch with Otis Williams and Missy Kelly, and we can make those funds available for you. Yeah, I'm very sorry to end on that down note, but it's the reality that we're in right now. We need to be prepared.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I know we've got partners on the call here that are in St. Louis County, not in the city. And Rodney Krim at St. Louis Economic Development Partnership does have some tools and has some, has the ability to do some help as well for some county businesses. So if you're not in the city, you can also reach out to us about that. Beyond that, I'm not aware, if we've got partners on the call, I'm not aware of specific programs in St. Charles or in Jefferson or Franklin or in the Metro East area. But if you need some help, let us know, and we will be glad to reach out on your behalf to the economic development agencies in those areas who are all a part of this group that we talk with through Otis every Wednesday morning. And so we've had a lot of interaction and communication with them over the last several months, and so we'll be glad to reach out on your behalf. I think that's it. I guess I would ask Brian, first of all, do we have any questions or comments on the chat that we should talk about?
Well, Dia Hoover said woohoo, and I guess that must not have been to the last thing I said.
Somewhere along the way, woohoo.
Can we add tours? Yes, to Dia's question, can we add tours? Offering private tours and walking tours? Yes, we want them. So please, we'd love to add tours. Anything that is a consumer experience is appropriate for Passport to St. Louis, and so please provide us with those tours. And somebody probably responded to her and said affirmatively. That would have been Barry, and that's why she said woohoo.
Ah, got it. Okay. Any other comments or questions? If you didn't ask one, now's a good time to do it. We want to make sure that we make the most productive use of everybody's time on the call here. If you think of something afterwards that you'd prefer not to put on the chat, as always, just please reach out to one of us directly afterwards, and we'll do our best to try to get an answer. And just if you have an idea, some of the best ideas come from other people, so feel free to share them. We'll keep working at it. As I said at the beginning, as I said to our team yesterday, the road's got some potholes, but we'll just keep driving around them, and we'll get to that smooth road, and we'll get back to a better place. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the presentation and the work.
Well done. Thank
Eric,
you.
I know that you and Patrick and Brian are all working together on this, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the work the sales team is doing, our small but mighty sales team, and they're made much mightier by all of our partners in the region working with us on those groups. So it is hump day. So we're over the hump today and on to the rest of the week. I hope it's a good week. I hope it's a better week, and we'll be in touch, and we'll have another one of these calls in a week. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.